Good afternoon, everyone. So today is Friday, which means we are going to paint again. So I know I've not been around for a few days because I took a break. But now that homeschooling is about to begin, I am going to demo, or you can paint with me, this simple landscape as promised today. Okay, so let's just first go over the materials. Oh, by the way, this is Mammy Grass, and I am a newbie watercolorist. So I'm here to do a demo about how I paint landscapes. So for those who are out there who wants to paint with me, don't worry, I'm also a beginner, so you can just follow my lead or do better than what I am about to do. So feel free to also comment if you have questions or message me at my Facebook group, Arts and Crafts by Mommy Grass. Okay, as mentioned, we will be painting a simple landscape. So let me just present you my reference photo. So this one I grabbed off Pinterest. I forgot the original owner of this photo, but I will put the link to the Pinterest site where I got this photo. So this is one. So we have these elements right here. So this is the background forest, the foreground, a branch of a tree, a small or a thin bush, and then sort of track. Okay, so it's a path going to that forest. So very simple, and we will just be using if you're going to paint with me, we'll just be using the basic colors, primary colors, red, blue, and yellow, and maybe a bit of burnt sienna and burnt umber. Okay, and then I'll also be using at least 2 brushes. I have 3 here in case I need to put in some details. I'll be using my size 6 round brush. I also have here my size 12 round brush and my size 10 round brush. Alright, for sketching, I'll be using my favorite Kimberly 4B pencil. I have here my student grade Winsor and Newton cotton. It has just started raining. And then of course you would need a clean jar of water. For here, I will also demo how I will use for the first time this resin palette that I made just yesterday. It actually just cured this morning. So this is a handmade palette that I made using a crescent moon shape, silicone molds, and hard curing resin. Okay, so I'll be using this for the first time. And then for the paper, I'll be using 100% cotton by Baohong, but I have already cut the paper and put it in my handmade resin journal, okay, or rather sketchbook. Alright, so I'll be using this for the first time as well. And as you can see, I just cut the paper from my old practice paintings, but I am using student grade cotton. Okay, so I'm using student grade colors and student grade cotton paper for this paint with me session. So without further ado, let's start sketching. So for the sketching, we'll just divide the paper into the horizon line, which is a bit below the center. Okay, so we just sketch my line using my overhand hold of the pencil, and then I'll just very faintly paint in the background tree. Okay, I'm just sketching just a few of the details. I'm not gonna sketch every little detail from the reference photo, because all I want to really give focus on is the tree branch, which is going this way and going this way. Okay, and then there's a bit of part of a tree that's showing here, and then there's also a bit of slope here, and then the path, the lonely path going towards the foreground. Okay, as you can see, the sketch since you have this vantage, rather this for what you call that, for perspective, the lonely road is going to be opening wider towards the foreground, towards the bottom. Okay, just to indicate that it's going that way. Alright? And then there's also some posts. We'll just sketch that a bit. Okay, and then there's supposed to be shadows. And then there's post here as well. Okay, and then a bush, a tiny bush here. And then the branch of the tree is going towards that area where they meet with a tiny bush. Okay, that's how simple the sketch is. And then we'll just lighten it up with my kneadable eraser, which I can find at the moment. Let me just look for it. Okay. So I don't want strong pencil lines when I'm painting, so I'll just lighten it up a bit. Okay, as you can see, the sketch is very simple compared to the reference photo. So what I just drew here is this line, the horizon line, and then the branches or the trunks of the tree towards the background, and then this overhanging branch of a tree and then part of a tree on the left side, as well as this thin bush here, and then some of the poles, and then this just to provide some perspective, the lonely pathway is widening towards the bottom, just to indicate that that's going towards the woods. Okay, so for this we'll be using yellow, red, and blue colors. We can mix green, we can also get the sap green, and then we will also be using burnt sienna, burnt umber, and yellow ochre. Okay, so that would be, I think, that will be all the colors that we will be using for today. Okay? Okay, so I am just going to wet the paper. Okay, this is the back side of the sketchbook that I did using resin. So I'm just wetting this because I'm gonna put my paper over this one, and I need to work on wet paper first. Okay, so the technique will be wet on wet. And I'm just gonna put that paper, my paper here. Okay, and then I will just wet the paper. This is to make sure that the paper doesn't buckle when I am painting. Alright, and if you notice, I also remove this page of the cotton paper and the resin backside or back cover from the entire sketchbook, so that it's easier for me to move around my paper. Okay, there you go. So the the result for this, if you wet the backside of the paper, is that the paper will stick on the back cover. Alright, and we want that because we don't want to work in this kind of with this kind of subject where you have background that is a little bit out of focus. You would want to work wet on wet to make that to achieve that effect in a watercolor. So here I'm still wetting the paper using just my snap size 10 round brush and clean water. Okay, alright, so the first step was to wet the paper from the back and from the front. Okay, now let's proceed to applying our first washes. Okay, so for this I'll be using let me just clean my watercolor because it's a little bit dirty. So let me just show you my watercolor. I'm using Winsor and Newton cotton. And for this, let me just clean it up, and then I will put that here in my mixing palette. Okay, the one that I made. Okay, and then I will add a little bit blue. Okay, to achieve very light limey green. Okay, so if you haven't guessed it yet, I am going to apply that in the area where there's gonna be the tree, okay, as well as the branches. Okay, that's overhanging. Okay. So I'm just putting that here as my first wash, and as you can see, it's very light. Okay, when you're doing your first wash, it has to be light enough that you can see the color, but you can adjust for the darkness or hue later. Okay, and then for the foreground forest, I'm going to mix red and blue. Okay, because if you remember here in the, it's probably not obvious here in the camera, but it's actually a little bit purplish in color. Okay, so let me just mix a purple color by combining ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson. Okay, so we're working on this painting using limited palette, and again, the colors will be light, and I will at the moment try to avoid the green part. Okay, and then I'm gonna lift up some of the colors. Okay, just to show that there's some space between the branches of the tree. Okay, okay, let me just lift that off. Okay, okay, just went to grab a piece of tissue paper. Okay, so I'm just lifting off some of the spaces in between trees. Okay, there you go. All right, so you can see the color violet is already granulating, so that's what I like about combining colors. They tend to granulate, and I like that effect. Okay, now for the foreground, we'd be using yellow ochre and yellow. Okay, so this is the yellow ochre. Okay, so for the foreground, we'll be using yellow ochre. Okay, that was a bit okay, let me just lighten it up. It's too strong, but that's fine. Okay, so yellow ochre, and then here also. Okay, and then I will use burnt sienna for the path. Okay, and combine that a bit with yellow ochre. Okay, so this is the path here. The path starts here and becomes wider here. Okay, so I am just delineating the patches of colors for the first wash. Right, so there you go. Okay. So now let's start with darkening the color of the foreground, or rather the background, while it's still wet. Okay, so let me just, okay, I will add a second layer of, I'm just wetting this again because it has dried up a bit. So I will add sap green. Okay, so as you can see, I am just adding the colors wet on wet, and as you can see, the color is spreading. Again, this is just a second layer, no details yet. Okay, I'm just allowing the colors to spread like that because it's wet. The colors will, of course, spread towards where there's wetness or water. Okay, and then I will just add the part of tree that's visible on the left side as in reference photo. Okay, and then there'll be more green here as well. Okay, okay, I am trying to leave white spaces in between the branches. Okay, you don't need to copy the reference photo as is, so this is subject to your artistic interpretation. Now, while that is drying, let's now add the let's make a stronger purple by adding more ultraviolet, or rather ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson. Okay, so I am looking at my reference photo while I'm painting this. Alright, so now let's proceed to adding the darker part of the forest. Okay, and then so I just push the color upwards as I am seeing them on the reference photo. Right here it's gonna be darker. Okay, it's a little bit bluer at the bottom, so I'm adding more ultramarine blue. Okay, and then I'm just allowing that color to bleed. Okay, what's playing on the background is Studio Ghibli Piano Station, one of my favorite playlists on Spotify. Okay, so I am slowly building up the trunks of the tree forest. Okay, and then there you go, and then I'm adding more alizarin crimson and blue, so adding more colors and adding more patches where I see them on the reference photo. Okay, so I made it very strong. Okay, okay, and then I will just lift off some of the colors that are too strong, as in the case here. Okay, so if you make a mistake, you can always lift it off so long as the paper is still wet. Okay, here also, here. Okay, there you go. And then okay, if you notice, there are whitish sort of light here from breaking from through the forest from the sun. Okay, so we will do that by simply lifting off the color with a clean brush, and I might use my size 4 brush for that effect. Okay, so let me just experiment on that. Here you go, here also. Okay, this is too soon, so we will just, okay, okay, okay. 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 So that's how I do the light coming through the forest. Okay, and then I will just manually draw the branch, which is also the same color, or rather the trunk. I keep mentioning branch, but it's actually trunk. Okay, so now I'm adding, as you can see, the paper still damp. Okay, so this is working wet on damp. Okay, the paper is not soaking wet, but it's a bit damp, so the color is still spreading, which is what I want, because the foreground in the reference photo is actually where the forest is slightly out of focus or a little hazy. Okay. Okay, what will happen if we, okay. So as you can see, some of the colors are already too light, so I will just darken it with reapplying second layer or third layer of color. Here you go. And one way of doing this to make spaces in between these trees, okay, is to add some salt. Alright, so let me do that. Let me just grab my salt. So this is one of the techniques that I use when I missed some of the white spot in between dark colors. This is also what I use when I am painting rocks, to give that granite texture. Okay, there you go. So I'm adding salt with the trunks, and then I'm just gonna add the details. Okay, just darkening the trunks that are visible. Okay. And then we'll just okay, using this synthetic brush, I'll grab water. This is a little wet already, but let me just re-wet it again, and let me just lift off some of the colors again. Okay, for the effect, for the light effect. Okay, there you go. Because the first one didn't work as well as I intended to. Okay, and then there you go. Okay, and then I will add darker blue and then a little bit of burnt umber into the violet mix. Alright, and then I will put in some, okay, maybe not yet. Oh, not yet. It's not yet ready. Okay, here. Let me try it here. So I'm adding burnt umber to my violet mix for foreground tree trunks here. Okay, and then this line here. Again, I just used the same violet color, but I added a bit of burnt umber just to give some more details to the forest. And as you noticed, I'm working wet on damp. Okay, you can see that the salt is already sort of spreading the colors and giving it white patches. So let's just allow that to happen here. Okay, and then I will just again lift up some of the colors. Okay, if you notice, I keep lifting off because this is still damp, so I'm just trying to give the illusion that light is filtering through the forest. Okay, and then let me see if I can already add some of the visible trunks. Okay, let me just I'll need to mix thicker consistency for violet, using less water on my brush and using the same color but with a bit of burnt umber again. And then I will just paint some of the branches that are showing through. Okay. Here also. Okay. Okay. Okay, so now that we're almost done with the forest, let's now add the details for the leaves. Okay, so let's add the mid-tone. So it's blue, it's green. So we're using sap green rather. So we're just adding that to the limey green mixture. And then sap green to the limey green mixture that we did earlier, or we mixed earlier. And then I will add a bit of blue to make it darker, but not really that dark yet. Okay? And then we'll just do it like that, you know, adding the patches by doing this brush stroke where I just dab the color like that to depict the leaves of the branch, or rather the tree, part of the tree that's showing through on the left side of the picture. Okay, and then there's a bit of hang here. Okay, and it's going this way. Okay, and then from the branch there would be leaves here as well. Okay, I'm using mid-tone. Later on I will add the yellowish leaves, okay, in some spots. Okay, and there's supposed to be yellowish leaves here. Okay, here we'll just, okay, let's add more yellow and let's put that here in my Winsor and Newton. And let me just so I'm using lemon yellow for this, lemon yellow and a bit of green, so that's a bit limey, just for the part where the sun is hitting the leaves. Okay. Excuse me for that. Okay, so there are at least 4 types of green here in this tree branch. Okay, and then let's add more yellow because I feel that the yellow here is not as strong as I want it, or as in reference photo. Okay, there you go. And then let's add a darker green. Okay, so using the same color for the mid-tone green, we will add more blue this time, and then a little bit of burnt umber. Okay, so I'm just mixing the green, burnt umber, yellow, and blue. Okay, you can also use sap green and then add blue and burnt umber. And then let me just add those dark greens as shadow where I'm dabbing it where I painted the lighter green. Okay, so I'm just adding it in dabs. Okay, and then there will be sections where it's almost black. Okay, so for those sections I will add more burnt umber. Okay, just to make it a bit black, and then a little bit of blue. Okay, and that would be, okay, that would be for the branch later also. So maybe I should add the branch already. Okay, so for the branch, let me just grab my burnt umber and blue. So I will have a very strong brown, very dark brown that is almost black. Okay, so again I'm just mixing ultramarine blue and burnt umber for the branch that's overhanging. Okay, so you can see the color, the paper still relatively damped. So if you need to use a thinner brush, say a rigger brush, you may do so. But for me, I'm just using the tip of my size 6 brush. Okay. So already try this on the left side and also at the bottom of that overhanging branch. So there you go. Though the watercolor isn't spreading as much. Okay, and then let's just let's now add the branch. Oh no, let's just add this branch here. Okay, so that's the branch. Okay, and then I would need to add dark greens on this tree here for the shadows. So I'm just using the green mixed with burnt umber and blue, ultramarine blue. Okay, as you can see, the paper is still damp, so the colors still tend to spread a lot. Okay, so I'm just doing I'm just dabbing the colors again. Okay, and then there's a bit of branch here, and then I would need to add cream consistency of sap green. Okay, just a little bit of water on my brush and just add more green. Okay, and then dabbing. It's almost dry brush effect, as you can see. Okay, so it's dry brush effect here, and then let's add a bit of dry brush effect here as well. Okay, you can actually use a sponge for this if you want. You're also welcome to do that if you have sponge. Okay, so I'm just disturbing the color a bit. There's a branch. Okay, and then so we're almost done with the foreground. Let's now proceed to, okay, let me just add a bit of burnt umber on this side where you have a little bit of branch poking through. Okay, there you go. So now let's proceed to painting the foreground. For the foreground, we'll be using yellow ochre and a bit of blue. Okay, so the kind of green that I will produce here is a little on the muted side. Okay, earthy. Okay, hope you can see that. Okay, let me just see. Okay, so I am adding just yellow ochre and blue to make those green. Let's see. Okay, okay, we just add a bit of water on that. Okay. Okay, this is too brown. We just add a bit of okay, so I'm just painting the shadowy or the shadowed side of the foreground where no light is hitting the ground. Okay, this is to just delineate the sections that are not highlighted, all right, so I don't forget it, okay, or I don't lose it. Okay, then here also just a bit of, okay, and then the rest should be on the lighter green. Okay, so let me just add some yellow into the original green that I mixed for the tree, and then there you go. So I'm just sketching over that, if you noticed. So I'm working, obviously I'm already working wet on dry on this, but my brush is not too wet. All right, it's not too wet because as you can see, I've started with the shadow part and then proceeded to painting the mid-tones. Okay, I know some of you artists out there work differently, like you start with lightest color and then go darker. But here I'm just really drawing it in, okay, and then I will add a bit of more yellow, but this time I'm using cadmium yellow just to make it a little warmer. And then I am going to glaze it over this. Okay, so I'm adding more water into this and then just glazing it like that. Okay, without necessarily because I'm working wet on dry, so I want to glaze on the foreground like this. Okay, maybe you do this differently, but sometimes I do it this way. For me it's easier, much easier to do this, doing glazing, but being careful not to I'm careful not to reactivate the paint below by, you know, just lightly touching my, or just lightly brushing over the previous colors that I put down. Okay, so there you go. And now I'm gonna use burnt sienna for the lonely patch. Okay, burnt sienna for the lonely patch, but I will add a bit of cadmium yellow and yellow ochre just to tone it down because okay, and then I'll just add a little bit more water and just add a second layer to my lonely path. Okay, making sure that the tiny path is wider at the front. Okay, there you go. Now I have my path. I noticed that the shadows are still not complete, so we will add that shadows, but only once this is dry. Okay, so right now it's still wet, so let me just add the, here we haven't added this one, which is this tiny bush that's meeting towards the overhanging branch of the tree. Okay, so let's do that by using burnt umber added to my burnt sienna and a little bit of blue, maybe more blue. Okay, more blue, and then let's see, is this dry enough so we can paint over this? Let's see. Okay, so the colors, but this is a little out of focus, so it's okay if the color spreads a little. And then I'll just add those branches. Okay, there you go. Okay, let me just add more blue here, and then more burnt umber, and yeah. Let me just paint the shadow here while this is still a bit damp, so it's not too sharp, the color. And then let me just double, okay, here. And then we will just dab some details here for the leaves. Okay, so if you notice, this is darker than this one because this is this part of the bush is not being hit by the light, so it's in the shaded section of this foreground. Okay, so let's just add more shadow here while this is still a bit damp, and then let's just go over that again just to strengthen the color. Okay, and then we'll add a bit of salt for the sections where you have highlights. And then, okay, and then I noticed that my shadow here is not too strong, so I will just use the same color that I used for this bush and add it here. Okay, because the shadow is not as strong as in the picture. Okay, then if you notice, there's a part here that's too sharp. We will soften that later. I'll show you how I'll soften that. Is I'm just strengthening the shadows in the right at the horizon line where that divides the foreground and the background. Alright, so let me see. Okay, so there's a bit of shadow here as well. Okay, probably caused by nearby trees. Okay, or that overhanging part of the tree. Okay, and then we will just soften that by, okay, and then let's make it greener by adding a bit of yellow and blue. Okay, and then what else did I miss? Okay, there's a bit of shadow here as well on the foreground. And then let's use the burnt sienna knit for the part where you also have shadow right on the path. Alright, oops, sorry, there should be, that should be a bit, okay. Okay, so I just made the path stronger, okay, but with sections that are a bit lighter. Okay, just lighten that up. Okay, there you go. And then you also have some green patch on the lawn, but we'll do a dry brush technique. Okay, I'm using a dry brush technique by adding limey green on the section where there are grassy patches. Okay, again, being careful not to reactivate the paint underneath. Okay, there you go. We just grab this bit of Okay, and then I will mix that with a bit of blue, the liming green that I did, and then I'll just add some shadowy sections on those grassy patch that I just painted. Okay, there you go, and then a bit of here as well. Okay, there you go. And now let's soften this part, okay, by wetting a piece of tissue with clean water. So I'm just gonna grab clean water, okay. So I just grab clean water and I'm gonna wet my tissue, okay. So let me just move this here, the left side. I hope you were able to see that the whole time that I was demonstrating painting. It's kinda okay. So I'm just dabbing in some water here just to force some backgrounds and also to soften that very sharp boundary between the forest and the foreground. All right, so that horizon line right there is too sharp. And then I'm forcing some backgrounds using my wet tissue. Okay, there you go. And then here also it's too sharp. Okay, I'm just lifting off some of the, okay, just to create some texture here. Okay, just lifting off some colors. Okay, there you go. Oops, sorry. Alright, so there you have it. And I'm just gonna add, I'm just gonna glaze some purpley color here, just to here, so let's lighten that up. Just fixing some purple here. Again, I'm being careful not to reactivate the paint. Okay, so I'm just adding a bit of purple here because I noticed that some green. Okay, just to indicate that behind that overhanging branch is the forest. Okay, right, so let me just okay, so this is let me just spatter a bit of green on this section. Okay, it's gonna spatter some green. I'm gonna use the same green that I used for the just okay, just add some green here, and then let's see. Just move that paint around. Okay. Then just allow this to dry so that we'll see the final painting. Okay, so we'll have this dry naturally. Okay, hello, so I have sped up the drying time by using my hair blower for this to fast track the drying time. Okay, so as you can see, there's also a post here. There are wooden posts around the section, so we will add that. So for that, I'll be using burnt sienna and a little bit of burnt umber, and a little bit of blue. Okay, so burnt sienna, and then a little bit of burnt umber and blue. Okay, there you go. So blue just to darken the post. Okay, so let's add that one here. Okay, and then one here also. And then one here, that's a bit thin. And then here also. And here. Then there are regular posts here, as well as here. Okay. And then we will just lift off the color of the top part, just to indicate that those are a little bit highlighted, okay, because of the light coming from above. But let's darken the bottom side or the bottom part of the post by adding more blue and burnt umber and adding a bit of colors here. Okay, it's lifting off. So making sure that there's less water on your brush for this. Okay, just on the right side where you have the shadow part. Okay, right side bottom. Okay, oops, okay, weird shape. Okay, okay, and then here also. There you go. So yeah, that's done. See. So yeah, that's done. So we have this. Okay, so forest. So as you can see, the salt did its job of repelling some of the purplish colors for the sky. But let's just add more. How about we add more red into that? I don't know. Okay. But I think that's also already okay, because you have these tree branches here, but it looks floating, so we'll just correct so by adding more. Okay, let me see. Ah! Okay, let me just grab that with my tissue, and we'll add more sort of outline, just a bit of outline on those parts so they don't look floating. Okay, okay, okay. So there's a bit of branches here also, just to show that they are trees, okay, because they look like they're floating. Okay, so I'm just again randomly dabbing on this section just to show that these are trees where you're where there are gaps to show a bit of the sky. Okay, there you go, that's fixed. Okay, so there you go, that's the simple landscape that I made using again the reference photo here. So you notice the tree, the overhanging tree branch is a little bit different here. Okay, there you go, so it's a little bit different, but that's how I interpret this art, or this photo. Okay, so that's my artwork. Okay, and I hope you kids were able to paint with me. I know it sounds a lot, but it's because basically I just use the reference photo as my guide. So I will also post the reference photo in the video so that you'll see how I did the painting. Okay, okay. So I hope you like this, and I hope that you'll find this easy to work on. And I hope to see you next Friday. Yay! Okay, let me just arrange that here. Okay. There you go. Okay, see you next Friday. Bye for now.